Hi, Mr. Fagan. My name is Carly Melder, and I am your registered dietitian. It's so nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well for the most part.
Okay, well, good. So I'm glad that you're doing better for the most part. I heard that you stayed, a few nights at the hospital recently. How did all that go?
It was okay for the most part, but the food wasn't the best.
Yeah. Sometimes, food's not the best at the hospital, but I'm glad that, it wasn't too long of a stay and you were able to go home pretty fast. I'm sure you were happy to do that. So kind of before we jump into everything, I just wanted to ask you if there's anything specific that you want to make sure that we cover today, or anything specific that you want to make sure that we touch on.
I just want to kind of get the basics of how to control diabetes down, because I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah, okay. We can definitely make sure that we cover that. We can just kind of cover the basis of type 2 diabetes today, get you some more information over that. So we can kind of talk about the basis of that, kind of go through a plate method to help with your diet that they wanted you to follow at the hospital, just so you get a little bit more familiar with that. I also want to kind of discuss about how we can create a better routine for you to be able to keep track of taking your medication, because I know it's been a little bit difficult for you to do. So I'll just kind of start with the basics today, and then as we continue to meet, through the next few weeks and months, we'll just kind of build on top of that information so you just don't feel like I'm throwing everything at you all at once. So
Okay.
I just want to make sure you don't feel too overwhelmed with all this new information and you live here feeling confident. So how does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, but before we get into all that good information, I'm going to start with a few questions just to get a little bit of background information on you and just learn a little bit more about you, if that sounds good. Okay, so first question is, how many times do you eat throughout the day?
Usually about 3 or 4.
Okay, and what did you have for breakfast yesterday?
Usually I'll have I guess yesterday I had a bagel with cream cheese.
Okay, and what about lunch?
For lunch I went to Jimmy John's and had a sandwich.
Okay, and is that pretty normal going out for lunches?
Yeah, usually it's quick and easy.
Sure, okay, and what about dinner?
I had some chicken with some potatoes and green beans.
Okay, awesome. And do you normally snack at all throughout the day?
Yeah, I do a time or two.
Okay, what do you normally snack on?
Usually like potato chips or like a granola bar.
Okay, awesome. And what do you normally drink throughout the day?
Usually I have at least 5 cups of coffee,
Okay.
and then some water and maybe like a beer or so every now and then.
Okay. And how often would you say you eat out throughout the week?
I usually daily for
Okay,
lunch,
for your
at least
lunchtime.
one meal.
Okay. And then do you perform any exercise or anything on top of what you normally do in your daily activity?
Not really. I'm not very active at my job. By the time I get home, I don't really do much either.
Okay. And then I know we kind of touched on your medication a little bit earlier. So how frequently do you feel like how frequently do you take your medication right now?
I take it when I remember, but I'm not the best at remembering when to take it.
Well, hopefully we can help you a little bit with that today.
Yeah.
And then how often do you check your blood sugar throughout the day?
Not very often. I would say maybe 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay. So some good stuff that we can kind of work on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, what are just some challenges or barriers that you feel like you may be facing right now or may face in the future with all this new information?
I'm just afraid I'll be too much at once, and I probably won't be able to process a lot of it.
Sure.
But that's just kind of my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'm able to help you a little bit with that and you feel a little bit more comfortable with all of this. So, are you about ready to kind of jump into the basics of type 2 diabetes right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So don't worry, all this stuff that I go through today will all go home with you. So you'll have a hard copy. You can read back through it, write your own notes on it if you want to, and just feel free to ask me any questions if we go through something that you don't feel 100% confident about.
Okay.
So this right here just talks a little bit about the basics of type 2 diabetes and just kind of breaks that down a little bit more for you. So basically type 2 diabetes is a progressive disease that affects multiple organs in the body, and it causes insulin resistance. So that's why, since you're not able to produce as much insulin, that's why it's really important to make sure that, you're taking your medications as you should. It's also important to take your medications. I know that you got admitted with a really high blood sugar, and of course you don't want to go back to the hospital, so it's really important that we kind of get all of this under control. So some of the things that we really need to focus on is to just kind of help with your weight as well, trying to find a new diet to follow. So have you heard of like a carbohydrate consistent diet? Is that something you're familiar with, or not too much?
Not really.
Okay. We'll kind of jump to that more a little bit in a second, but I feel like the best thing to kind of start with is your diet. It's good to make small steps now and focus on a few things and just build on top of that as we continue. So just a little bit more about type 2 diabetes. So it can occur in anyone. So doesn't always mean that you're eating what you're not supposed to. It can happen for a lot of different reasons. So making sure we're trying to control the diet, trying to do some extra physical activity. And I know you're trying to avoid a lot of added salt because of your hypertension and trying to lower your cholesterol. So that's something you're really focused on anyway. So we're just going to try to combat that along with your diet. So that's just a little bit about type 2 diabetes, different ways that we can kind of help control that. How did all of that sound? Some good?
Sounds good. Makes sense.
Okay. And like I said, this will go home with you. So you have time to read back through it. Just kind of gives you the basics. So if you want to share this with any family members or anything, definitely feel free to, just to kind of have a little bit of accountability with that. And then are you ready to move on to what I like to call the plate method next?
Yes.
Okay. This handout will also go home with you as well. So this handout right here basically just kind of shows you how you should be building your meals about 80% of the time. So this is called the plate method. Now, the first step you should do whenever you're fixing your plates, before you even put the food on it, you got to choose a plate, right? Mm-hmm. So choosing a plate that is like a salad-sized plate or like a kid-sized plate or like a dessert-sized plate is a great plate to eat off of, because whether you feel like you are or not, you're automatically working on portion sizes if you're using a smaller plate. So we pick our smaller plate, and then what we're going to do is try to make half that plate our non-starchy veggies. Okay. So some example of non-starchy veggies would be like your broccoli, your green beans that you had last night for dinner, zucchini, carrots, tomatoes, cucumbers, all of those. And right here is a list also of some non-starchy veggies as well that you can refer back to. So try to make half your plate your non-starchy veggies. Try to do them obviously not fried. We don't want to add in a ton of additional calories through that. So try to just do them like sauteed or steamed, leaning more towards that. The next fourth of your plate should be your proteins. So we want to try to do more lean proteins. So your lean proteins would be things like chicken, turkey, lean beef or lean ground beef, fish, seafood. All of those are considered lean. And you can really get creative with it, cook them however you want, like baking, grilling, air frying. We obviously want to avoid the deep fryer, of course, but any way you like to cook it, I don't want your food to be boring or bland. So just trying to do it that way. And the last fourth of your plate should be your carbohydrates. I know I mentioned consistent carbohydrates, so we want to make sure that you're having about a consistent amount of carbohydrates with all your meals. Mm-hmm. It's important to make sure that you do have some carbs with your meals just to help balance out your blood sugar and keep everything in line. So we want to focus on good carbs. So your bad carbs would be things obviously like cakes or sweetbreads. A lot of the sugary stuff is what we kind of want to avoid with our carbs. But there are good sources of carbs that can help with our diet. So things like whole grains, we want to focus on whole grains, whole wheat bread, brown rice, whole grain pasta, different foods like that would be considered carbohydrates are great. So trying to do your plate like this about 80% of the time. Obviously, you can still celebrate things like your birthday or special occasions or holidays that you may have some more yummier foods or more indulgent foods. But I would say try to do this about 80% of the time. Even if you have a bad day, just try to get back on track with the next.
Okay.
So that's just a little bit of the basics. Do you feel like all of that made sense for the most part?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Any questions about this so far?
No.
All right. And the last thing I just wanted to touch on briefly was a little bit with your medication. Because I know we were talking about before, you were having a little bit of difficulty making sure that you're taking that.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things you feel like you could do or I could help you with to help you remember to take your medication?
I feel like I could just, you probably set a reminder on my phone to do that. I haven't thought to do that yet.
Yeah, setting a reminder on your phone's great. Creating checklists maybe on your fridge before you leave the house. Did I take my medication today? But I think the reminder on your phone is great. Most people always have their phones with them, so I feel like that is some great ideas for sure. So, how do you feel about all that information that we went through today?
I feel good about it. I feel like it made a lot of sense to me.
Okay. Do you feel like some of these things are stuff that you'll be able to kind of incorporate into your daily life?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And then is there anything specific that I didn't cover that you wanted more information on, or do you feel okay for right now?
I feel okay for now. Can I give you a call if I don't?
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you my card with my email and my phone number afterwards. So if you do have any questions about this information or anything, just don't hesitate to reach out. Okay. But before we leave today, how does setting some goals for you? So the next time you come in, I can ask you about some of these goals and kind of see how you're progressing with those. Mm-hmm. Okay. So are there anything specific goals that you have for yourself right now?
I'd say obviously taking my medicine every day, checking my blood sugar at least 2 or 3 times a day, and probably just try to eat out. Don't eat out as much as I am.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are all some great goals, and I'll make sure to write those down just so I can ask you about them. Next time we see each other, it's good to, kind of start small because you can't change everything overnight. So I feel like those are some great stuff to start with for the next month or so, and then I can just kind of check in on you and see how it's going. Okay. So when would be a good time for you to come back?
I'd say a month or so, probably like 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay. Well, perfect. How about we just do 4 weeks, just do some monthly visits right now until you feel a little bit more comfortable with all this new information, and then you just feel more confident about it.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, it was so nice to meet with you today, Mr. Fagan, and I look forward to our next visit with each other.
Nice to meet you too.
All right.